Alright, we're back. Alright, so slight change of plans. Got the 4-piston Brembos here, which are still pretty beefy as is actually. And I'm gonna throw these on, see how well they fit on there with these rotors. And I'm pretty sure these are the rotors that are gonna fit with these. I don't know yet if I'm gonna run them or just throw them on there and see how they look. But I'm just gonna see if this fits. I also got the washers. Let's use some 1/2-inch washers to space it off the spindle so that way it sits properly on the rotor. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and see how they come out. Alright, so let's get started. Got the wheel off. So kind of already did a little bit right here. Got the caliper off. That's just the 12mm bolts. Take those off. And I use a jack stand to kind of hold it up, move it off the side so it's not hanging on the brake line. And then you have these two 15mm bolts in the back. I already broke them loose. Just gotta keep loosening them. And then I'll take that bracket off along with pads. And then I'll grab this rotor and then compare it to this one, the stock GT from 11 to 14. And then we can see what the size difference is. Alright, got the bracket off along with the rotor. So rough measurement, rotor's about 13 inches across, as opposed to this one that's 14 inches across. It's about 1 inch extra diameter on the rotors. So I'm gonna set this off to the side. Just for size comparison. Hopefully it fits. No issues. Alright, so it's kind of close. As you can see right there, this is gonna be 1/2 inch extra all around for a total of 1 extra inch in diameter. Next thing, so I have these washers. There's either M12 or 1/2 inch, so I'm about to check right now, see which one fits best. And this should go right about there, so it looks like it fits good. So this one's pretty much the exact same size as that little washer there. And then it's a 1/2 inch zinc Everbuilt? Yeah, Everbuilt washer, 6-pack. You only need 4. So from the back, to get on the fit, you're gonna have your bolt. It's gonna go through like that. Then you're going to take your washer, and it's going to go right here and right here. Try to screw on the bottom one. And that's it. It's going to look something like that, obviously with the rotor. So it's still pretty big brake caliper as this, even though it's just a 4-piston. I'm going to pull these pins out on each side, the little retaining clips. Set that off to the side. Alright, so that was really tricky to try to get out, but you just get one side off and pop off the little bracket. These should come right out. Take the pads off. Even these pads are still pretty big. Pretty sizable pads. Alright, with that, the caliper is installed. Use the washers to space it out. You can see right here, that's the reason why. That way you have equal distance on each side of the caliper, kind of gap, so you're not touching. As you'll see, like if it's not seated properly, it's going to touch. Alright guys, welcome back. Alright, so today we're going to be working on the brakes for the Mustang. So the front one's already got the front driver's side mocked up. Obviously you can kind of see there's no rotor in there, so it looks a little weird, but I kind of did this just kind of get an idea on the fitment for the wheels. It looks like it's going to be kind of close. I won't really know until I get the rotor in. Fortunately, that's coming in tomorrow, so we'll get this thrown on and then get it all finalized. Maybe get a spacer, either 3mm or 5mm. I won't know for sure until the rotor gets here. I might try to see, I'm pretty sure these rotors are all the exact same size as far as the width of kind of like the hub where it bolts up to. So I'll try to see if I can measure it and then use spacers to kind of simulate a rotor being on it, and then seeing how well the wheel bolts up to it, kind of like just try to mock it up right now, or even just seeing if I'm pretty sure the rotor will fit on there. It obviously won't mock up properly onto the caliper, but throw the rotor on there so that way I can put the wheel on there and bolt it up on there properly. What I ended up doing is I counted how many turns it took the lug nut to come off of the stud on the opposite side that still has the older brakes on it, and it came out to about 22 half turns, so 11 turns onto the wheel stud till it's pretty much about snug. So doing that, I did it on 2 of them right here, and it's pretty close. I'm pretty sure it is gonna probably just barely hit. It's not super accurate because I don't have the rotor, so I have no way to really compare, but it probably will need a spacer, maybe. I won't know for sure until the rotor gets here. Over here though, I'm going to measure what I believe the length of the axle is, specifically on the right side, so that way I know I have enough room to pull the right axle, to be able to get the axle off to swap out the bracket, the mounting bracket for the caliper. Once I know for sure that I have enough room to pull the axle on the right side, then I'm gonna try to do the rear brakes, so that way I know I can pull the axle out, swap out that bracket, and slide it all back in and get the rear brakes installed today. So that way tomorrow, once the rotors come in, I just gotta take the wheel off, throw the rotor on, bolt up the caliper up again, and then be good to go. Also, I gotta actually double check the fitment for the brake lines, because I have the 13 to 14 GT500 brake lines, and from what I heard, they should fit up perfectly to this style caliper for the S550 6 piston. So I'm gonna go grab those, take the wheel off, and then check to make sure that those brake lines do indeed fit. Alright, so I got the GT500 brake lines here. I want to open up to kind of see what it looks like. I don't remember which side is which. I'm just going to pull them out to compare. So, oh wait, it says it on there. Sorry, so this is the right side. So don't drop it. Alright, and it got stuck. There we go. Alright, so looking at this now, it's definitely gonna have to be milled down a little bit, or kind of like trimmed down a little bit. I already opened the box, so I can't return them, so I might as well just try to see if I can modify this. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark this up, and then I'm gonna probably try to take the angle grinder and see if I can precisely cut up, or I might end up taking the Dremel actually, and we'll see how well it fits after that. Alright guys, so I took both brake lines and I did the necessary modifications to it. So this one, you have to cut a little chunk out of the bottom of the banjo flange. So the way I have it oriented is the way that it's gonna fit best. That way the line isn't crimped in any way. It kind of like goes through and fits the best. So it's gonna be facing upward. So you're gonna have to make a cut on the bottom. It's gonna be a 1/4 of an inch from the face of it, and then 1/8 of an inch from the bottom of the edge of the banjo flange. And then once you have that cut done, this will fit perfectly. Well, you can see it's a little crooked, so I cut a little more than what's necessary, but I mean, it'll be fine. You could cut a little less, so that way it fits better. But as long as it bolts down and you can tighten it down, you'll be good to go. So I got this side pretty much done. Also what I did is I've straightened this out. So I kind of just laid it somewhere flat. You can kind of see the hammer still over there. And I just hammered it down to where it's flat. And I got a longer screw and nut. And then also this is a 1/2 inch nylon spacer. And then I took one of these 3/8 vacuum caps, which obviously it's going to be too small. But since it's plastic, I just cut the capped end off of it. So it's a sleeve. And then pretty much stretched it over it so it's a tight fit. That's just the way it sits a little bit like firmer or like flatter against it, because it's not going to be, this part right here is going to be the part that's against the little slot that's on the strut. Alright, so next day here, so I did a little bit of progress on the rear last night. I didn't get too into it because it was getting kind of late, so I didn't want to get caught up working on something and then not get enough sleep. So I got the brake caliper is removed and off to the side. I removed the bolt for the mounting bracket and slid the electrical connector off, disconnected the Ebrake. The only thing really left to do here is to basically remove the diff cover, drain it, and then remove the C-clip and the retaining pin so that way we can pull the axles off. So I can swap this bracket out with this one and then be able to bolt everything else back up. Once everything's mounted up, ready to go, that's when I'm gonna swap all the brake lines so I can do all four at the same time, so I can bleed all four at the same time. We'll be good to go. Brake rotors for the front should be showing up today here, maybe within the next hour or two, hopefully. Once I get those, mount those up, and then take the wheel, throw it on there, see what the clearance looks like, if I need a spacer or not. I'll definitely go get a spacer so that way I can get the wheels on, so that way I can get this car back on the road and test it out with the new brakes. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get under here, move some stuff out of the way obviously, and then drain the diff, and then try to see if I can remove the cover without having to remove the Watts link. It's definitely gonna be close. I might end up having to remove the Watts link anyways. So we'll see if I can get enough clearance to get the cover off so I can remove the axles. So I'm gonna go ahead and get under there, move this stuff out of the way so I can get a little bit more room to work with, and then we'll get started. Got the rotors installed, looking good, nice perfect fit. So I tested out the wheels to see how they fit. And the new wheels I bought that I was hoping would fit, because they're 19 by 9, don't fit as good as I hoped. So I used these washers, the washers that I originally used to kind of check to see if these fit, which says to use 1/2 inch washer, and it did fit perfectly with the 14-inch rotors obviously. So I used these as a reference to see how this would fit, because I don't have any spacers here. So I tried it with these, and with one spacer it still didn't clear, with two still didn't clear, and I measured it with a measuring tape as accurate as it can be, and it came out to about 3/16 of an inch with two washers. So with 3/16 it's about 4.7 millimeters, and it still didn't clear. So I tried 3, and I didn't really have the right amount, so I kind of only did it from 3 spots, and it fit, and it has a good amount of clearance on both sides. The only issue with that is 3 spacers measured a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch, which is a spacer I was going to order. So I don't know if 1/4 of an inch spacer will make these fit, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm going to order the 1/4 inch spacer anyways, and then test it out. Maybe I can try to shim it. I don't think there is such a thing as a 1 millimeter spacer, but if there is, I can probably put it underneath and then put the 6 millimeter or the 1/4 inch spacer on top of it, and then just give it just a hair bit more room for it to fit, at least with these wheels. And I should still have enough threads for it to engage with the lug nuts and still safely drive it around. Now as far as the performance pack S197 wheels that I have, tested that out. I used 1 washer and it fit way better. So with that, this washer is about 2.3 millimeters, and it fit perfectly fine. So 3 millimeter spacer will work fine with the S197 performance pack wheels. I should have just gotten the performance pack wheels, but I found these for a pretty good price, and now it's going to be difficult to try to make them fit, but it's fine. I'll try to make it work. I'll definitely try to let you guys know what other wheels will fit for the setup. That way, if you guys want to do the setup on your S197, you know what wheels to look out for, so that way you don't go looking around and buy wheels that don't fit, or you need a spacer and the spacer still isn't enough to fit how it's probably going to be for me, and I'm gonna bite myself for making that mistake. But it is what it is, and I'm gonna try to make the most of the situation and then try to make it work anyways. But at least the performance pack wheels, which are gonna have the Pilot Sport 4S with the 3 millimeter spacer, will work. So I'm just glad about that at least. Back here, I got all of this side still removed, and I just loosened the bolts for the cover.
Oh wow, it's actually still draining.
So this fluid kind of looked a little brown. So it was a good thing I'm doing this, so I can also change the fluid, the rear diff fluid, which for people who've done rear diff fluid change on their vehicle, you know that it smells really bad. And as I remembered, it does smell really bad. But so I got this off. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough clearance to get the cover off. It's probably gonna hit the Watts link, a little connection there. I'm gonna go ahead, put the camera down. I'm gonna try to figure out what I can work to try to get this off, and then get in there to remove the retaining pin and the seat clip so I can get these axles out. And I'll get back to you guys as soon as I figure it out. Alright, sweet. It came off actually pretty easily. I just did what I mentioned in the last bit, lifted it up and moved it to the left, and I was able to get it to clear the Watts link, which I'm really happy about. I don't have to touch the Watts link. I don't have to worry about that. I can easily access the diff. You guys probably can't really see because I have a really crappy headlamp that I can see, but it looks like on the camera it doesn't really show up. But the cover's off. Set it down over here. It's still kind of slowly draining, so I'm gonna leave that for a minute or two and then come back and try to like wipe it all up. Or I get a rag and then try to scoop whatever's left on the bottom. And then once that's straightened out, I'm gonna come back, remove those seat clamps. Hopefully the passenger side clears. I just gotta move those boxes from there. And then once I do that, should be able to get the axles out and then swap out these, I guess the brackets for the calipers. And then we can get the brakes done. Actually, right now I'm trying to get some spacers. Someone locally has a 1/4-inch spacer, so I'm hopefully gonna try to go buy it. It sounds like there's a lot of people fighting for it right now, so I'm gonna try to see if I can win that, bring it over here, and then test fit the wheels with the 1/4-inch. Hopefully it fits. If not, I might try to find a shim like I mentioned and then see if that works. So I'm gonna set the camera down and I'll be back. Alright guys, I'm back. I got some good news and I got some bad news. Good news is I was able to get those spacers from the guy locally. Bad news is still doesn't have enough clearance. So I'm definitely gonna have to have at least a 7mm spacer, which doesn't really exist, but I'm gonna do a little bit of research. Hopefully I can find something, or even if I can get a washer that's 1mm thick and put it behind the spacer to kind of give it just a little bit more of a gap, but the surface of the wheel will still be on the spacer itself, and then hopefully that works, and then we'll be able to get that done. Meantime, I'm probably gonna come back here and then try to get these axles out so I can get the brake swapped out for the rear. In the front, I'm just gonna have to wait until I get something figured out to get this to work, at least, I guess. So I guess that's probably gonna be for today. I'm not really gonna show that because I might not get that much done on the rear, so I'm gonna have to catch you guys on the next one. Alright, so real quick, when you're under here, you want to make sure that the Ebrake is off and you have a neutral, so that way you can rotate this. You want to rotate it to where you can get to this cross pin retaining bolt, and it's going to be an 8mm, and you're going to get in there and you have to remove this screw to get that bolt out. But to do that, when you try to turn it, the whole axle moves. So fortunately on the passenger side, I still have the brakes attached on that side. So what I'm gonna do is engage. You could also just put it in drive, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna engage the e-brake so that way this won't turn, so that way I can get this bolt out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. Alright, so engaging the e-brake didn't do anything, so it's still rotating. So well, I just ended up putting it in gear so when it rotate, and then got the wrench in there to loosen it. The only issue is the wrench can only go so far before it hits this, and then you can't loosen it anymore, and then you have to tighten it back down to get the wrench off, or the ratchet wrench to get that off so that you can take this off. So I'm using one of these, and it's a ratcheting close socket wrench, and I got pretty loose now, so I should be able to reach in there and just take this out. It's a pretty long bolt. Take that out. I'm gonna set it up to the side and put them right here where the bolts for the plate go, and this should just be able to slide out. There we go. Alright, so you're gonna push it in until it just slides out. It should glide right out. like so. Make sure you have its orientation the way it came out. From here, you want to have to rotate again, which I already put in neutral. It should be as simple as rotating this. There should be a C-clip here. So it'll be as simple as pushing it in on each side. So you can see there's that clip there. I'm sure the other one's on that side. But yeah, you're gonna get a little magnet and get that clip out so that way you can pull the axles out. That way you can go ahead and swap out those brackets. I'm gonna go ahead, set the camera down, pull those clips out, and then try to get these axles out. Alright, got the C-clips off. I worked on the other side, took the brake caliper and the rotor off, pushed the axle in, got the C-clips off. So you can either use needle nose pliers over there or a magnet. I use one of these. They're like thin profile magnet to reach in there. And you kind of just like wiggle it around a little bit until it slides off. Because this might be oriented in a way where it won't slide off easily out of the axle. So if it's like that, just keep moving it until it slowly starts to come out. And then grab it with the pliers or with the magnet and then slide it right out. So now these axles should be ready to slide out. I'm gonna go ahead, set the camera down, and then grab some rags, slowly pull the axle out, hopefully not drop it. First axle out. Looks to be in very good condition. No visible issues here. The other side. Second axle is out. Looks pretty good too. I was worried I wouldn't have enough room on the right side to get the axle out, but once I moved boxes out of the way, I had more than enough room. We're good to go there. Now we're able to get this bracket off and swap it over with the bigger GT500 one, and we'll be ready to go. Drop this all back in, put it back together. Alright guys, so skipping forward quite a bit, after pulling the axles out, swapped the anchor plate for the calipers for the rears, fed the axles back in after I bolted them down, had everything mocked up ready to swap over the brake lines the day prior. So I had the caliper, all of that bolted up, the bracket for the caliper bolted in, the rotors ran, everything ready to go. And then the only thing that I had left to do was swap the original brake line from the calipers I removed to the new calipers. And that's what I did today, is I disconnected the brake line and swapped them over to the new calipers, which in this case I disconnected it from where it bolts up to the frame as opposed to swapping over the banjo bolts, especially because in the front I had to use the newer ones and then modify them for the fit, and the rears I just used the brake lines that came with it because this came off of a GT500 for the 13.8 rear brake rotors. After I did that, bled the brakes starting with the passenger rear, the driver rear, passenger forward, and then finally the driver's side forward caliper. And then on the Brembo brakes starting from the inside going to the outside. When you're bleeding the either the 4 or 6 piston rotors, you're going to do it from the inside to the outside. I did that, bled the brakes, and then after I went through and got to the front one, the front driver's side one, that's when the pedal actually started getting hard, and I had to do it all by myself. So that was the challenge, just trying to bleed the brakes by yourself. So what I ended up doing is I took off the top portion of this jack, and then I used the bar to push the brake, and then I braced it against the seat to hold the brake down so that I can open the bleed valve for the calipers and then bleed the brakes. And then I did that for all 4 sides, and then we were good to go. There was a bit of dirty fluid in the Brembos, which is surprising actually. The rears were cleaner than the front somehow. But that's all bled, good to go. All the air is out, all the dirty brake fluids out, fresh clean brake fluids in through the whole system. And she's ready to go. The only thing left to do was to reinstall the rear diff cover, which I was going to use some high temperature RTV, but I instead decided to just go ahead and buy the lube lock gasket for the rear diff. So that should be coming in tomorrow. I'm gonna install that, then she'll be good to go, ready to drop down, and hopefully give it a quick test drive. So I didn't really show it but I had to do some kind of sketchy installs for here on the front. So you might notice, you can kind of see that there's a washer there along with the spacer. So the, what is it, the quarter inch spacers were still not enough to clearance the calipers. So what I ended up doing is I took the spacers that I used, the 1/2 inch washers, and put that between the rotor and the spacer to get enough room to clear. And you can kind of tell right here, it has good amount of clearance. I would say maybe about 1/2 millimeter clearance. So hopefully when I get the rest of my spacers, because I ordered more spacers to try to kind of minimize how far out this goes, because I was able to get about 7.5 turns on the lug nuts, which most sites recommend the minimum, absolute minimum, is 6. So I got 7.5 with what is approximately, so the quarter inch is about 6 millimeters, and then the washers I measured with the micrometer I have over there, it came out to about 2.3 millimeters. So that's a total of about 8.3. I bought a 5 and a 3 millimeter spacer, so those together should be about 8, but it should be about 0.3 millimeters less, so I should be able to get the wheel a little bit closer. And the only reason why I want that is because this way I did it now, it barely slides over the hub. So the wheel is centered. It is centered on the hub, so it's not going to wobble, hopefully. I won't really know for sure until I get it down on the ground, and then I torque the lug nuts down to 100 foot-pounds and see how much clearance I have then afterwards. And then driving out on the road, seeing if I do have any wobble. If I do, it's probably not going to be plausible to use these wheels, which is going to suck. The only other option would be to get probably like a 1/2 inch spacer, or like the smallest spacer that I have with not extended lug nuts, but the hub centric on the center of it. That's really the only thing I can think of that would make it work, so I can use the fronts, which sucks. I don't want to have to do that. So hopefully this works. Once I get a chance to swap those out here in the next couple days when they show up, I might take one of those. I might take this quarter inch and throw it on the rear so I can space out the rear a little bit. Since the front's going to be a little bit more spaced out, I also will do the same with the rear. And same thing, just make sure you get at least 6 threads or 6 turns on the lug nuts for engagement, so you have properly safe engagement on the lug nuts, which I'm pretty sure this will be perfectly safe. It'll be fine, especially with these wheels. Only requires what's approximately anywhere from 7.5 to 8 millimeter clearance to clear the calipers, whereas the performance stack wheels, which are going to be the track wheels with the Polysport 4S, that one only needed the washers to clear, which the washers were about 2.3. So the 3 millimeter spacer will work perfectly fine for those, and that's what I'm going to be running whenever I take the car to the track. It's just that 3 millimeter spacer on the front, and then probably the quarter inch on the rear. That one will stay as is for both this set and the track tires. So with that, that's really about it, aside from waiting for the next few days for those parts to come in so I can kind of test everything else out. But realistically, this swap was actually pretty simple. You could just do the GT500 swap and then use whatever wheels that people know fit on the GT500s, which will most likely be the GT500 wheels or the performance stack wheels. Those are almost for sure will fit. But I will try to do more research, see what wheels can also fit on this. That way, if anyone's planning on doing the same thing to your S197, you want to do the S550 6-piston Brembo swap to yours. I'm going to try to see if I can find people who have different set of wheels, and then test out, see what other wheels will fit on this, or what size spacer you will need to run whatever wheels you have for these Brembos. For the rears, obviously it's not going to be an issue because you only have that one piston rear brake caliper, and then just a slightly bigger rotor. But for the rears, you will, if you run this, you will have to at least run an 18-inch wheel, whereas the front, you're kind of limited to 19. You might be able to run an 18, but you're going to have to use a pretty big spacer where you can kind of see the shape of the wheel starts to come out the further in you get into the wheel. So you could run an 18 theoretically, but you're going to have a wheel that has pretty big clearance over the caliper, and then it's probably going to stick out a little bit more because of that. But again, Thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned for more updates on this, how everything works out, and stay tuned for more videos. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.